Hey, Servant listeners, 90 Day Fiancé. Let's watch.
It's coming.
Of course I am. Like, are you serious right now?
No.
Corey, I'm not gonna ask you to trust me, because trust is something that you earn. So if you feel otherwise, you can always go find someone that you can feel more comfortable with.
It's an interesting way of putting it, that she said, because she's saying that, yeah, I got together with him, and then Sean asked, because I think a lot of us were thinking the same thing, because the way that she framed it, it was like this random thing that happened, that the ex just came into town out of nowhere, and boom, she got together with him, instead of what seems more likely, since she would say that they were in frequent communication, that he would say, hey, I'm coming to town, which I don't think that changes the story. She thought that they were on a break. And so I think it's common when people cheat or they think they've done something that was, a transgression upon someone's trust, is that they'll only give so much information, because there's this falsehood, not all the time, but often it is a falsehood, that if I only tell a little bit of the story, it won't hurt the other person as much. But what ends up happening is that the story smells fishy. People will say, oh yeah, I got together with them, I spent the night over there, but we just kissed. That was all that we did. And then later on, it's like, no, I guess we did other things. I guess I actually got together with the person a lot more than I even said. It was over several different nights. And it's important in the beginning, and I'll do this with people as they're going through infidelity recovery. I will talk to the Evelins of the world, and I will say, you have to reckon with the story yourself first, because a lot of times people go into denial themselves. They're just like, they don't want to think about it. They don't want to admit it to themselves. So the first thing I do with them is, you have to reckon with what happened. You don't have to say right away, but you have to accept, and in your mind, not go into denial about what you did, at least in your mind. You don't have to tell me, you don't have to tell your partner, but you have to reckon with it. Then you can make an evaluation on what story you should tell your partner. It should be truthful. It shouldn't necessarily have every fine, detail, every small detail. I have a dog hair on my nose, I think. It's itching me. But I wonder if that's what she was doing, was that she admitted it, but she didn't want to admit more of it. Now, it's completely possible that he did blow into town suddenly. I don't think that changes the story, though. Whether she knew about it in advance, maybe it would change if she knew about it months in advance or weeks in advance, because that would go into the time when they were, Evelin and Corey, in a committed relationship. So let's watch.
So what am I right now to you? Can you just tell me?
Oh, right. My point was that she said, look, because he's questioning her. She's like, are you sure you didn't know about it? Because I've always wondered if you did know that he was coming into town. And she says, look, trust is earned, buddy. I didn't know what she meant by that, because it's usually the other way around, right? Trust is something that I have to earn back from you. But it almost seemed like she was switching that phrase around to, buddy, you are on your heels and trust is earned. And I don't know, maybe I was misinterpreting that. But then she said, look, if you don't trust me, then, you can go to heck. If you do trust me, then fine. Instead of, you know what, Corey, I understand why you would have that worry. Makes total sense. And Evelin is capable of that validation. But when she's defensive, she's just like, look, you're either in or you're out. And so deal with it or not. Instead of, so she seems to have two modes. One, when she feels threatened and she gives that avoidant kind of response of, I'm out of here, take it or leave it. That's kind of an avoidant attached response. Or when she's more secure and she's more understanding. So she seems to be in that first mode right now.
Let's go find someone that you can feel more comfortable with.
So what am I right now to you? Can you just tell me,
And that is a great question. What am I to you? And we would hope that this would be clarified more often than on a tell-all. And it's a valid question. And I think that it is a question that they need to ask themselves. What am I doing in this relationship? Particularly for Evelin, because it's clear what Corey wants. For Evelin, I wonder what is going on with that ambiguity. On one hand, she's like, no to marriage, no to kids, no to Corey. On the other hand, she's like, yes to Corey, no to kids. But do I love him? Do I really want to be with him? Or am I just involved with him for some other reason?
Well, Corey, first, I want you to know that I've always been your friend, and I've meant it in every single way.
Are you still like feeling the same or not?
But you know that Evelin is the most beautiful girl. You know, ever since I saw her surfing. And
it raises an interesting question, because at first, when Raul revealed that he was still in love or has a crush and sees himself being with Evelin someday, and Raul is a friend to Evelin and a friend to Corey, at first I'm like, well, that's not a real friend, pal. Real friends don't lust or romance after your friend's spouses. You don't entertain that. You might have those feelings, which are fine, but you don't entertain it. You know, there are differences between an emerging, shall we say, like intrusive thought or automatic feeling, and entertaining it and going with it, deciding consciously, yes, I agree with that feeling. I like that feeling. I'm going to cultivate that feeling. I'm going to cultivate the fantasy that one day I'm going to be with her. That's conscious. That's volitional, and you're responsible for that. You're not responsible. If you suppress that and you're like, I can't do that. I'm friends with Corey now. But every once in a while you see her and you're like, but I'm not going to entertain that. So, that would be, I think, understandable. And so at first I'm like, how can Raul be a good friend how can Raul consider himself to be a friend to Corey when he's doing that? But then we hear Raul say, look, I just want to say, I'm your friend, and I've always been your friend, and I like you, and I respect you. He said nice things about Corey. And so there's that. Then you have to wonder, was Raul saying it to Corey to break them up? It doesn't seem like that's the case. But it does raise an interesting question. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Can you be a good friend to someone while also having feelings and having a crush for your friend's partner? Now, in polyamorous relationships, this would be completely normal and above board for the most part. Not always, but for the most part. But in monogamous relationships, monogamous cultural pockets, this is usually considered not okay. But because on one hand, if I were Corey, I'd be like, well, I'm done with you because you're actively trying to get with my partner, which isn't a good friend. I understand if you're attracted to someone, but out of respect for our friendship, I would expect that you wouldn't go there in your head. You're like actively going there in your head. But on the other hand, seeing Corey's reaction, maybe Corey's like, well, he wants to get with my wife. What are you going to do? She doesn't want to be with him.
But also, I wanted to be honest with her that if they ever break up, that I want to be with her.
Oh.
Oh, poor Corey.
He's not supporting their relationship at all.
My friend kissed you.
Yeah, 'cause
I don't even you.
Yeah, it's just another situation where Corey's been put upon, I will say. But I don't think there's anything inherently problematic with this. As long as Evelin upholds the boundary and as long as Raul doesn't do anything horrible, it's just in Raul's mind. And I actually believe Raul when he says that he supports their relationship and isn't trying to break them up. Sometimes I wonder with this trio if Evelin and or Raul are more polyamorously oriented. It's my contention that people similar to sexual orientation are oriented on a spectrum, and maybe it changes over time with regards to total monogamy and total polyamory. And sometimes a lot of people are in the middle and can exist on either end of the spectrum. You know, you can be in the middle and be in a monogamous relationship and be okay, or be in the middle and be in a polyamorous relationship and be okay. And around the world, there are a lot of in my belief, there's a lot of in the same way that around the world there's a lot of gay and lesbian people who are closeted because of society, and they are dealing with heterosexual relationships because that's what they're forced into sometimes. And there's something, it's never going well for them because it's not ultimately who they are. Well, the same can be applied to polyamorous people. That I believe that there's a lot of polyamorously oriented individuals around the world, but because of society, they're being forced into a monogamous relationship, and it goes against who they are and what they want and how they think. And so, who knows? But for Evelin and maybe even Raul, they're more polyamorously oriented, meaning that for Raul, he can love Evelin and also appreciate that Evelin is in a relationship with Corey, which to polyamorous people or open relationship people, ethical non-monogamous people, would make total sense. You can be absolutely in a flirty, even sexual relationship with someone and not try to interfere with their marriage. And you can be in Evelin's shoes and be polyamorous and be like, look, I really want to be with Corey, and I kind of like this flirtatious relationship that I have with Raul. And by the flirtatious relationship I have with Raul, or even my ex-boyfriend, doesn't interfere with my love for Corey. Now, on the other hand, there's been so many indications that Evelin isn't into Corey, including this, because it could be an indication, like if Evelin met the right person, would she tell Raul, look, you've got to back off? Or given that she isn't that into Corey, she kind of keeps that open with Raul. Who knows?
Corey, do you think that you and Raul could still be friends after this?
Honestly, I think we'll just have to see. I don't know. This is all new information for me.
You told me to be 100% honest, and now I'm being blamed for being honest.
No, you're not being blamed for being honest. When people say this, I'm like, that's the logic that you're seeing? You're not being blamed because you're honest. You're being blamed for, having feelings for his fiancé and for not telling him earlier. Like you revealed earlier, hey, I got to get, and the way he made it sounded much more involved. I was under the impression that he got together with Evelin over, several times. Evelin's description sounds extremely limited. I don't know if that matters, but so you're being blamed for lying by omission this whole time by trying to get with his fiancée, his girlfriend, and not being a very good friend. That's when you're not blamed for being honest. People say that, look, I'm just telling you how I feel. I'm just being honest. Why are you upset with me? That lack of compassion or something, lack of putting yourself, empathy, or putting yourself in someone else's shoes. Now, as I've been saying, maybe for Raul, if he were to be in Corey's shoes, he'd be totally fine because he's more open in that way. He doesn't have that value of you shouldn't entertain ideas about your friends' partners.
Having Raul talk about his feelings for Evelyn just really pisses me off, actually. It's like, you can't say you're my friend and then do that. I know, after watching that video, I know that he just wanted me and Evelyn to be broken up. You don't do that and be somebody's friend.
Yeah, I totally get that. Absolutely. I totally understand that you would be hurt and angry and feel betrayed that your friend has been actively flirting and entertaining thoughts and even entertaining the fantasy that you're going to be with her. Absolutely understand that and would absolutely support him if he was like, I'm done with Raul. On the other hand, I think given your value system, you could say, well, he's into my fiancé and I trust my fiancé around him, and people flirt sometimes. It's not a big deal. So I've seen a lot of variability in people's approaches to these kinds of situations. There's no one way that you have to be. You're certainly free to have the reaction that you want, but there's no right way to respond to this.
In the now. I think those friends of hers are having a big impact on that. Have you seen Raul lately? Is he around? I want to talk to him personally before he's around you. I don't trust them.
You don't have to trust my friends. You have to trust me, okay?
Yeah, that's a good point. I was going to say that, but she said it for me, that he is worried that Raul, their mutual friend, will get with Evelin. But Evelyn's saying, you don't have to worry about Raul. If Raul hits on me, I'm going to say no. So you don't have to worry about trusting Raul. You have to worry about trusting me. And I'm telling you, I'm not going to do that. I think that's what she's saying. And that makes a lot of sense. There's reasons why we do this, that we will target the Rauls of the world instead of really trying to build trust or wanting to know from the Evelins of the world, can I trust you, even though people are hitting on you? It's because sometimes people believe that my partner is teeter-tottering, and if someone comes along, boom, they're going to take my partner away because I don't think my partner is really that into me. And that needs to be evaluated, whether that's true or not. If it's true, then you need to accept that. If it's not true, then you have to wonder what relational traumas are being triggered that make you assume that about your partner. The other thing that people will think, particularly with when the Evelins of the world are a man in a heterosexual relationship, is this belief that men can't say no to things, that men, if a woman hits on a man, particularly if he's attracted to her or he considers her to be attractive, men cannot say no to those things. And so a lot of women in heterosexual relationships will say, well, yeah, I know that my husband isn't planning on cheating on me, but if someone comes along, he will cheat on me because men are dogs. Men have no way of controlling themselves, which is not true. Men can absolutely control themselves if they want to. So there's that. But there's also this notion that for not everyone, of course, but a lot of heterosexual women or women in general are used to saying no to people hitting on them because it's culturally normal in Western society, Seattle society, I'll just stick to my culture, for men to be the aggressors, just say, hey, I want to get with you. Hey, I want to take you on a date. So women tend to, not always, get more practice saying no, no, no. Whereas men don't get as much practice because of the reasons why I said. Even though people might want to get with them, they don't necessarily pursue the men as hard. And so men sometimes have a hard time understanding how to say no, even though they want to say no. And so I'll work with men sometimes, if it's reasonable to do so in therapy, to help them practice how do you say no to someone? How do you let someone down easy? How do you be nice to someone while also establishing your boundaries? What do you want in your life? For some men, because they're so ill-practiced with that saying no, they might actually agree to do things on a drunken night that they wouldn't want to just because they're not used to letting people down. And, I'm genderizing here. Of course, there's a lot of overlap there. But anyway, so Evelyn brings up a good point.
Just to fight?
I do trust Evelyn, but I don't trust Raul. I just want to see more focused on me and you, I guess, We need to start planning the wedding here and get going, get the ball rolling, right?
Just be clear, you are pressuring me.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like to me. So they got engaged, and it was clear from the beginning that Evelyn is extremely ambivalent about getting married in general, let alone to him. And so he's like, okay, we got to get the ball rolling, instead of, hey, honey, would you like to start planning? Do you want to get married? How into this are you? I know you want to be with me, but do you want to get married to me, to anyone? Let's have a conversation with that, and then let's talk about getting the ball rolling. But instead he skips that because he is worried that she's going to say no. And so he's like, let's get the ball rolling. And then she's, hey, you're pressuring me. So it's good that she's asserting herself and making it clear that she is ambivalent. Hopefully she can be even more clear with herself as to what she wants to do.
Sorry for that, but we are running out of time. It's upsetting that Evelyn is not as understanding as I was hoping for. We've been together 5 years. She should know what she wants by now. And if it's not with me, then I don't want to be with her.
Good. Makes sense. That's very healthy to think that. Look, if she doesn't want to be with me, then that'll hurt, but I don't want to be with her either. So what's going on with Evelyn? 5 years. I didn't know they were together for that long. What does she want? I think it's unclear. Previous season, we're in the what now season. She had a lot of indications that she really did love him and had a lot of affection for him. But I think in her, and I don't know if I showed this clip, but she said that when she was young, she would say, I don't have this dream of getting married. Even as a young child, she had this thing like, I'm not going to be like that typical thing, or I'm not going to be like that. I have other ideas for my life. Maybe she's a free spirit. Maybe she wants to work on her career. Maybe she doesn't want to be tied down. Maybe she doesn't want to have kids. She's basically said versions of all those things. And so, there's nothing wrong with that. But on the other hand, she seems to have a lot of affection for. So if I was to take a guess, I would say that she really likes to be with him. When things are fun and things are good, she really likes to cuddle with him, and she has all the normal romantic attachment that one would have with someone, and they have that. But when she thinks about being tied down, and when she thinks about marriage, and when she thinks about forever, that's really not what she's looking for. She's not ready for that, and maybe she'll never be ready for that. So that would be my guess. The other possibility is she just has fluctuating feelings for him. Sometimes she's really into him, and other times she is not into him. Maybe we'll find out.
I don't want to tell you this, but I'm going to tell you this. You always are kind of in control, but I want to stand up for myself a little bit here. I really do. If you walk out of the wedding, I'm walking out of this relationship, and I mean that.
Okay, so he's saying, look, if we don't get married, then we're done, because I want to have at least some control over the situation. That makes sense. That from me watching him, I think that's a wise ultimatum to certain, not in a mean way, but just saying, look, you're either in or you're out. I want to get married. I want to move on with my life. Proof's in the pudding. So either you figure out what's going on. Now, if I were him, I would say, look, I don't want to force you to marry me. I want you to want to marry me. So either you find a path to genuinely wanting to marry me, or this relationship has to end because I can't live in this limbo anymore. So he's wording it in a different way. Maybe she'll interpret it that way. Let's see what she says.
I sincerely mean that.
I'm not gonna marry you just because you are giving me ultimatum. It's not gonna work like that with me. If I knew you were gonna give me this ultimatum, I would not even say yes to the engagement.
So that's a bit of a weird statement. Now, I get that she doesn't want the ultimatum. It's pressure, but it's reasonable. You're engaged, and so it's reasonable for him to say, look, either we get married or we break up. Your choice. I don't want to live in this limbo anymore. So, but I get that she doesn't like to be pressured. And I wonder what she wants. Does she want it to be in this limbo space? Does she like it there? Maybe she does. Again, maybe she has fluctuating feelings. Maybe she has kind of limited feelings for him because she doesn't see him that often in person, as far as I can tell. But then she says, which I find to be when she gets in this fighting mode, which isn't very severe, I find that her logic isn't super coherent to me. Like in the tell-all, Corey was saying something about, hey, I don't believe you that you weren't in communication with the ex prior to you cheating. And she's like, look, trust is earned. And at the time, I thought it sounded like she was saying, hey, pal, I'm in control of, you are either going to earn my trust or not. And so you better be good, and then you will get my trust. Instead of what was relevant at the time, which was she cheated on him. At least that's how it felt to him. And that's the way she phrased it. She's phrased it both ways, that they were on a break and that it was cheating. So who knows? But the logic was that she's trying to earn his trust back, but she was seemingly, anyway, in this instance, she feels threatened. She feels pressured. It hurts her feelings, or it feels claustrophobic to her. She gets angry. She's done this many times. And it's not severe, and she says, look, if I would have got this, if you would have given me this ultimatum to begin with, I would not have agreed to become engaged to you. But just let's think about that logic. That if by getting down on one knee and presenting the ring and asking me to marry you means that I have to marry you, then I wouldn't have agreed to marry you. Do you understand? Well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And I would love to just sit her down and be like, look, I'm curious. What do you want? Do you want to be with him? Because a lot of arrows are pointing in that direction. Do you not want to be with him? Because a lot of arrows are pointing in that direction. Do you love him? Do you not love him? Do you have fluctuating feelings? It's just a huge question mark for me. All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.